This is Harry Droz, and you're listening to WNHHLP 103.5 FM, New Haven.
Hello and welcome to WNHH Radio's Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make our community tick. I have some good news to report today. A lot of us are living longer, especially once we've crossed that threshold to mid-adulthood. But that good news comes with a challenge. More elderly people in our community need help maintaining full, supported lives. That's where today's guests come in. Liz Davenport and Rachel Skolnick-Dobin help the elderly get the support they need through the Aging Adults Program of Jewish Family Services. And they're here to tell us about that. Welcome to the studio, Liz, and welcome back, Rachel. Nice to see you both.
Thank you.
And welcome, and thanks to Yellow Haven Hospital for providing financial support for today's program. So actually, I hadn't, even though I've been familiar for many years with the great work Jewish Family Services done from working with adoption and working with food pantry and other needs, I didn't know about this Aging Adults Program, and apparently you're expanding it. So maybe if one of you, you're both social workers, you both work in the program. I know, Rachel, I believe you have other duties too at JFS. What's going on with this program? What is it all about, and what's growing?
So at JFS, this is a relatively new program that we've started. We are providing case management services, resource support, family guidance, long-term care planning, doing just a wide range of things to help equip families and aging adults in the community just with all the care that they need as a part of the aging process.
So I'm at an age where a lot of my peers, I mean, some of us lost our parents years ago, but a lot of peers that the parents live, you have to start having those tough decisions. Do you help them find a way to stay in their home? Do you try to get them into the towers? When do they need more serious care when they're at the towers? These are heart-wrenching decisions.
They are.
And for the folks who are living long, it's great. They get to enjoy life longer. They keep their faculties, but the parts wear out. My parts are wearing out. So, so is that kind of what the mission is? Because I know that in the not that long ago past, I remember some people would always ask, like, whom do you ask for help? I have a friend who does this as a consultant. Is that kind of where you're stepping in here?
I think so. And to really be that phone call that if someone needs to know who to call or who is that they can call JFS, that we can be there, we can be responsive. If it's to a family member that lives out of state and their mom or dad is maybe not able to stay home, but maybe can if they have a couple more resources, and we can put some case management in place, which is really kind of helping people meet up with different resources. If it's finding them a care plan and really being that phone call to take some of that stress away from family members. And
you say the word case management, and that's an important word used for a lot of kind of help people get. It's sort of like where you go when you're not just buying something, right? Like, so who helps you to figure out stuff?
Right.
Who lets you know where you might be able to get somewhere to live, or where there's a day program, or where you get people come in and help you, where there's government. Does it also
very
include
much, and to be kind of like a one-stop
insurance?
Shopping for family members, to try to take some of that anxiety, some of that stress away from them, and say we can work with you to help you find the resources, and totally individualized for every family.
So now you're both young. How did you learn all this? Do they have like workshops or retreats and Barbados to learn how you
That
link
sounds
people up.
wonderful.
I would go to that conference for
Or
sure.
Dubuque, yeah.
So, just also kind of on your statement about case management as well. There's so many different options for different individuals that are in the community as well. But I think our goal for every family, for every aging adult that we work with, is always, what does the quality of life look like at whatever stage that you're in? Do you want to live in a facility that has supportive services, or can we bring that to you at home? It's very individualized, and we're
So
always
there's Home Haven, which is in East Rock, and I don't know if it's in Woodbridge yet, but it's in Hamden, where you have this community of people getting their 70s, 80s, even early 90s. They're kind of able to be at home, but it creates a network of people. They not only have events together, but they have information sharing about who can come in your home and help you stay there and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Was that one example of where you lead people, or do you get them into like the Willows, or what's the...
It really depends on, I think, family preference and adult preference, and financially what's smart for that family, for long-term care as well, or long-term planning in general.
And I didn't mean the question of how did you learn? How did you go about finding out all the different ways families cope with these challenges, and where you lead them to help?
So as a part of being trained as a social worker, we're trained across the whole lifespan to work with a wide variety of families, a wide variety of individuals just over the course of their entire lives. I spent a little bit of time working in a nursing home, and so a lot of my experience
That's
comes
right.
from...
You told me that, so you saw that.
So I've seen a lot, a different side. This is more in the community. That was more in a facility, but resources are very similar. Conversations that you have with families are very similar. You're talking about making just those heart-wrenching decisions of what do we do with our aging parents,
and the guilt and the coming to grips with reality about what's happening with your family.
Right.
But, yeah, and also sometimes you really want to... Rachel Stolman says, what is the name of this company? This is Jewish Family Services, and she wants to know, how's it different from the Agency on Aging, which is the state agency? Great questions. Thank you, Rachel. How is it different from the Agency on Aging, which is a state agency?
Do you want to answer? So the Agency on Aging provides tons of programs and has lots of resources. And we oftentimes will use the Agency on Aging to help refer some of our clients, because they keep a great database of a network of people that we can refer our clients to for aids, different people that have already been vetted to go into their home.
So in other words, do they have homes? The Agency on Aging has homes that they monitor?
No.
Oh, I see. They're going home to ask about them.
Right, and they have aids, like a referral source. So they have, through their website, a list of aids that are potentially available to some of our clients to help them in their home.
So they're a resource, an information clearinghouse. So is there a difference between what you do? Or is it just that we need a lot of this kind of help in the community? So we need you guys out there, we need them out there, and to some extent differently, the case management people who might be at places like the Towers or at assisted living facilities?
I think we do similar services, but I think resources are different, right? So Agency on Aging is a little bit larger than JFS. They have access to different things that we don't have access to, which is why we like to utilize them as a resource. We like to partner with them. We're a part of their interagency council, which meets throughout the year, and it's just a gathering of agencies that are doing similar things that we are. There are independent elder care case managers in the community. We all kind of sit in one room. We go over resources and say, hey, what's working for you? What's working for us? It's more of...
and they're statewide, and you're local here in Greater New Haven, correct?
Correct, yes.
Are you based at the JCC?
Jewish Family Service is an independent office in New Haven, not at the JCC.
Oh, yeah? Where are you guys based?
We're on Whaley Avenue.
Oh, that's right, near the old Athenian Diner.
Yeah.
Do you guys eat lunch there a lot?
No, it's now the Amity Diner. It recently changed names.
Any change in the food, or?
I don't think so.
But it sounds like you guys don't eat lunch there.
We don't.
All right, but you are Jewish Family Services, and you have a great program for aging adults. That's what we're talking about today on Dateline New Haven, with two people who make that happen at Jewish Family Services, Liz Davenport, Rachel Skolnick. And Rachel Stolman, thanks for the question. She writes in good information. Thank you. So you say it's not that old a program, Liz. When did it get started?
Really kicked off more so in the fall.
It's only been around less than a year.
Yeah.
So this is something new that Jewish Family Services has taken on.
Correct. So
is it because you saw so many people who were needing this kind of help?
Absolutely. So we get a lot of, we get calls from the community, and, we're a Jewish agency. So some of those calls are Jewish individuals in the community that are seeking assistance, and some of them are just the community at large. And so as those...
Like with the adoption, you have Jews and non-Jews. You're a Jewish
Correct.
agency, which has a mission that comes from Jewish values. You're especially there and known by the Jewish community, but you help other people too.
Absolutely. Greater New Haven is also a part of our title. And so we serve not only the Jewish community, but the New Haven community at large.
So you started this program, and how many people and families do you help?
Right now, we probably do anywhere, like carry a caseload of maybe 5 or so families that we work with consistently, but on any given month, we do a lot of consultation meetings, a lot of consultation phone calls, just what you were talking about as well with aging children or adult children, we'll say, with aging parents. And so do a lot of consultation with them and just, again, how do we have those conversations, the things that you've already mentioned. So
what's the strategy when you're dealing with a person in his or her 80s, let's say, am I right, with a kind of ballpark for age there, who's trying to come to grips with not being able to do what used to be possible, and with a child who's wrestling with guilt of wanting to do everything possible for a parent, but also not always knowing what's best based on, like, maybe the parent needs to be someplace the parent doesn't realize.
Right,
How
so
do you
that's
approach
like a
that?
multifaceted question,
is,
right?
it is, yeah.
So I think part of I think why we want to talk here today to you and get the word out is a lot of times we get these questions, unless you can correct me if I'm wrong, after that question. So sometimes we're getting that question 6 months or a year down the line when there's already a crisis, unfortunately.
And this usually is a crisis. Someone falls. It turns out someone didn't remember to take the medication.
Right. Someone's been independent without support probably for too long. Someone has not filled out applications for assisted livings, and now there's a wait list for assisted livings. So part of our idea of expanding this program is really to say JFS is here. We can just have this conversation and hopefully have this conversation and get you at least on a wait list or get you in the door to start to look at these assisted livings that are right here in our community, and some are really wonderful, and see what you like while you're still functioning, while you're still okay, and start to have these hard conversations before you're in really bad shape.
Yeah, my in-laws, they're not alive anymore, but they made a really good decision to invest early to reserve a spot in a place that's progressive. So you start out living in your own place, it's assisted living, and then there's a part if you need, you can move over to the kind of nursing care.
Right, and some of the upper, nicer places in our community, like Whitney Center and Evergreen Woods, they're they're fabulous. And
Whitney Center is amazing. That's
Whitney
a great
Center's
community,
amazing.
interesting people, yeah.
And we have a lot of our friends are there, and it's a beautiful, and they have everything right there. But to start,
you need to have bucks.
It's not right. It's not for everyone at all. So we'll also work with our clients and look at the towers, which we work closely with, and we love.
Also,
we love the
to get into
towers.
the towers, yeah.
Right, we love the towers. But for depending on what building you're looking at the towers, it could be a wait list. It could be 6 months to get in.
And there's also the finances. Even if you're not poor, you have to figure out, right? Am I wrong that you spend down your assets when you qualify for a certain kind of Medicare?
It depends, right? And we're not. We'll
Medicaid,
refer people, right, to financial advisors and to attorneys as it's necessary to have those conversations. And there's different buildings depending on what you're living on at that point in your life that would be appropriate. So there's one building in the towers, there's Davenport Dunbar, there's Bella Vista that are senior living for, if low income, if you're living off of Social Security. So
and how's the old Jewish home that's not the used to be Jewish home for the aged, now got bought by a private company on Davenport.
It's been owned by I think
Chicago company, right?
A private. It's out of New York.
Yeah.
It's been owned by a different company, I think, for about the last 7 years. It's actually called Advanced Center for Nursing and Rehab.
And how's it doing? Is it still a place that people want to get into?
We don't refer a ton there. We do more kind of what Rachel's talking about of just individuals who are looking for more subsidized housing, still able to live independently, but more kind of what we're talking about of like progressive, more like senior support, where they can kind of then transfer into.
And do you have the idea of trying to keep people in their home as long as possible with supports? Is that a value? Is that a goal?
I think that's a very individual question, because for some individuals, they are able to say, I'm ready to move out of my home, and I'm ready for because part of it's anxiety that comes with, am I going to fall at home? Am I going to remember to take medications? Can I prepare meals for myself? There's a lot of things that I think are really simple things that we take for granted of, I can absolutely do that, all day, every day, even if I have a cold. But as you age, your fatigue is greater and different things like that. So I think that's a super individual question of what's good for that family member and what are they comfortable with? What are their kids comfortable with? Who's
it's interesting how the world has changed since I've been younger. We used to think of people retiring into their work like at 50, 55, maybe 60. You got on Social Security for 62 or 65, but that whole program was designed with the idea that people don't live that many years on Social Security.
Right.
Now you can be on Social Security for 30 years or more.
Right.
And then we know so many people now in their 90s, they come to our synagogue, they're really with it. They give sermons, and they could do so much more, and that is a real
Right.
challenge to how people deal with it. I was a little more interested in this psychological issue of how you talk to both groups of people crucial to the decisions. And Rachel talked about how you talk to me about planning early before there's a crisis, before there's a fall. What else, like, goes through your mind from the experience you've had since November? Anything you've learned about when you talk to the family members who were involved in that decision?
I always challenge that family member to really think about what they're asking of their parent or whoever, because at some point, we're all going to sit in a room potentially with our kids, and they're going to say, like, hey, I think it's time for you to move out of your house. And that's a big life change. So I always challenge, though, whoever's involved in that care planning to really think about, what are you asking that person? And is what you're asking good for them and their quality of life, or is what you're asking them solving your personal anxiety about the choices that they're making?
That's a good point, right? Your personal anxiety versus what's best for people. Sometimes hard to separate that.
Right, exactly. So it's kind of, it's like peeling back layers of that conversation of really what's our motivation and what is actually good and how can we really solve these problems well for this person.
Mm-hmm.
And I know one of the things we're very aware about the stress and anxiety on caregivers. So one of the things we're absolutely looking to expand over the next year is caregiver support groups. I know from my own family's personal experience, my grandma lived with my family for over 10 years, and she had, started from beginning stage Alzheimer's all the way to the end.
And that's tough. When
it was really hard. My mom
you?
kept her at home the entire time. And my mom...
Was that the right choice?
It was for our family, and we were able to do it. And it was beautiful and meaningful and exhausting and brutal. So it was, it was all those things all at once. But my mom, now we've gotten very involved in what was the former Alzheimer's Association of New York. And one of the things my mom really talks about much better than I'm going to is that she wishes there was more resources for caregivers at that time. So there was a lot.
Oh, not just outside caregivers. You're talking about a family member.
For the family caregiver.
That's a great idea. So do you have groups?
So that's we're working on starting that. So one of the things is we're having our annual JFS fundraiser this year on June 13th, and we're trying to use some of the funds that we're raising that evening to really expand this program and bring in more resources, such as caregiver support groups, and be able to do more of that, because it's really important.
And this is really important. This is a great thing you're doing. So I'm thinking, now I didn't have to face this in my life or my in-laws because they died before this was the question, but I notice with other people when they have to make that decision that Rachel alluded to, whether to have the person come live in your house. And I think there's a lot of guilt involved in that, because I've known other people who kind of resent they can't be free once their kids are out of the house to have a life that's with less responsibility for other people. On the other hand, you feel the guilt the parent always cared for you. And then as what you said about your anxiety, it's hard to tease out what's best for everybody versus what you're feeling out of guilt, which doesn't help anybody, right? So you kind of got to be a little bit like a therapist almost, no? Or you're just referring to people, to therapists, to deal with that kind of issue.
So as the program continues to grow and develop, so as a licensed social worker, we have the ability to provide therapy and counseling to clients, their families, et cetera.
And do you find you're doing that?
I think it's a version of therapy anytime you have a conversation like this, because it's so emotionally driven, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that in informal terms, I'm going to say yes. And as the program continues to grow in formal terms, the answer will also be yes.
And of course, you're just getting started, because it's only been November since you've had this great new idea of an agency program, an aging adults program at Jewish Family Services, which we're talking about on Dateline New Haven at WNHH, your home for community radio, 103.5 FM, live streamed at newhavenindependent.org. Liz Davenport and Rachel Skolnick are in the house. So tell me about some people you've worked with without names, without divulging personal details. Tell me about a story of something that's happened since November where you said, this is why I do it. This is how we make a difference.
I get a lot of phone calls from adult children trying to have this conversation. And I've had a lot of really good conversations in my office about how do you start this conversation? What do you do? My parents are stubborn. Like, I don't know what to say to them. They don't want to talk about it. They won't tell me about their finances. How are we supposed to help them?
Those are all minefields you just mentioned.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's I'm never surprised, I think, when people sit down in my office. And I truly, truly love being able to just kind of walk them through other ways to think about what they're saying and what they're asking, and how can they approach them, and how can they approach them in such a way that doesn't feel like it's an attack, or it's saying, I only see your deficits, but how can I see the strengths that you have? So I love those conversations, but then also have had aging adults come into my office and call and say, hey, like, I know about Jewish Family Service, and I see this as something that you're offering, you know, what can you tell me? And these are the questions that I have. And some of those questions are just as simple as, you know, I have a hard time getting in and out of my shower, and I can tell them that your insurance sometimes will cover various equipment that you can put in your bathroom, like a shower chair or like a tub transfer bench. Like sometimes it's really that simple.
If
but
you
also,
can wrestle with the insurance company.
right. But also something that simple is also still creating a great level of independence for that aging adult at home. And so it runs a really, really wide gamut of who is in my office and who is on the other end of my phone a lot of times.
And can you think of a day since you started this in November where you were surprised? You said, oh, I didn't realize this was going to be part of the challenge. Here's something that just happened that's telling me something else I'm going to need to do, or something I'm going to need to focus on.
I think one of the things that I realized over the last year is, even if you've had resources and financial resources during your life, getting older has a whole nother set of expenses related to it. And nothing's cheap, right? Nothing in this world is cheap. And I had someone call me that was had insurance, but even with insurance, the insurance wasn't going to cover the hearing aids. It was going to basically, the price for the hearing aids, what they were getting back was going to cover a hearing aid in one ear.
Wow.
So you sit there and you think to yourself,
well,
because hearing aids are very expensive.
Yeah.
They're probably close to, for decent hearing aids.
Imagine if you worked at the insurance company, you told people you get one ear.
Well, they're
One
like,
ear.
you get a max
That's it.
of a lifetime benefit of $1,200. It was something to that extent. And $1,200, this very sweet older gentleman, $1,200 was going to cover him a hearing aid for 1 year. And it's just that I wasn't expecting. That is like, you need to be able to hear out of both ears.
That's cold.
Right.
So what do you do with that?
JFS finds the resources from private donors, from donations.
So
and
do people donate money to have you full hearing aid for gap insurance? Like, is there an insurance gap donor?
Well, it's, I don't have a, we get what we can, and I don't get those calls every day, but I want to be able, when I get those calls, to be able to help those people. It's really important.
That's so interesting. Now, Rach, you've been helping people at JFS for how many years now?
10.
And your job isn't just the aging, right? You do a lot of things at JFS. So what's your main gig there?
So I was brought onto JFS originally to start the SOS program. So it's the outreach, social work, case management program. So a lot of these other programs have kind of grown out of that case management program as well.
And one program I noticed on the website that was attached on the website to this aging program, which I don't know if it's exactly, I wasn't sure when I was talking to Liz, which is the Holocaust Survivor Program. That's listed in your website under the aging one. And it talks about helping, and obviously if you're a Holocaust survivor, you're elderly, there aren't that many alive left, God, unfortunately, and that you deal with everything like case management, use of a food pantry, nutritional health, but also reparations.
Right,
Tell me
so
about
it's
that
a little
effort.
tricky. So I coordinate the Holocaust program out of New Haven as well. And so a lot of the survivors, so these are people that have struggled and gone through the Holocaust, and they're all being deemed survivors through the claims conference. So we help.
What is the claims conference? I noticed that's who funds it.
So the claims conference is an agency that works directly with Germany to help these survivors get their reparations, get their financial money from having been in the war.
Okay, and so that when did you start up this effort in New Haven?
New Haven's worked with Holocaust survivors for many, many, many years.
And how many are left?
We have in the greater New Haven area, I work with over 40.
Over 40. So I'm trying to do the math. I'm not good at this, but I'm guessing since 1945, you've had 74 years.
So right, they're getting, it's a beautiful and hard program to run. They're obviously getting older, right? We have survivors dying, just from age, from health-related issues. But it's beautiful to be able to help get them resources at this point that they're entitled to, and get them some benefits.
Well, anything specific to Holocaust survivors in addition to claims? Anything specific about aging issues?
So there's more trauma, right? So when I go and visit them, and with everything that's going on in the world and the news, and a lot of them are home and alone all day, so they spend a lot of time listening to CNN. So they have a lot of trauma. It brings up a lot of their past history and a lot of trauma.
What's happening now with the resurgence of sort of Nazi-like movements in
Yeah,
Europe.
they just have a lot of anxiety too. So a lot of anxiety sometimes about being alone, a lot of just anxiety in general about where the world is. Is this going to be an okay place for their own kids?
Yeah.
So
It is upsetting with people any kind of memories of what happened in World War II. So Liz, I learned before we went on the air, has the brilliant idea of not being on Facebook on her phone. Is that something that would help some of the folks you deal with about maybe not having CNN on all the time and
Yeah,
maybe
I
put
think that's-
music on?
it's very hard. You know, if I'm going into someone's apartment
Yeah,
and
you don't
they're
tell them,
in
"Shut
their
off the
late
TV."
80s, early
Yeah.
90s, I'm not about to tell them.
But you do sometimes, do you not suggest the ways they can be with other people? You guys
So
do
right,
some
we
kind of
know,
programs?
and there's been a lot of research over the last couple of years about loneliness is, hurting people and killing people faster than any other disease.
Huh.
And we know people are horribly lonely. And so I
That's
will
sad.
suggest, and when I go to people, like, what are you doing? I ask a lot about structure. I'm very big that everyone really needs to have structure in their life. I think that's very, very important for different
with you.
people. That can mean different things. But
You're talking a little bit as a mom, I could tell. in your
yeah,
children.
we were
Yeah.
having this conversation on the
Yeah.
way here
Yeah.
a little bit. But I believe in this in all aspects of my life, very much so.
Yeah.
But I think, for some seniors that we're working with, that might be hooking them up with the local town and going to lunch a couple times a week. It might be going to a lecture
That's
once
big,
a week.
actually. I've noticed
Right.
that with
It
people I
might
know.
be making sure, seeing if they're eligible for a Meals on Wheels, just so they have another pair of eyes on them during the week. It's going to depend what that means for that person. But to see if you can get something on their weekly schedule 3 or 4 times a week is huge.
Yeah, so Liz, Rachel's been there 10 years. Before we came around the air, you said you've been working full-time at JFS since November. September. Before that, you were working at a nursing home. Where was that?
I was actually at Advanced at the old Jewish home.
And what were you doing there? Nobody knew so much about the place. Yeah.
Yes, I do. So, and even before that, I was an intern at Jewish Family Service. So they can't get rid of me. I'm here to stay, and I love it.
Did you grow up around here? I know Rachel grew up in Hamden.
I did not. I actually grew up in Kentucky and then moved here a couple years
But
ago.
no accent.
So, well, it comes and goes. So
Okay.
it depends on the occasion.
So how long? What brought you to New Haven?
I am married to a fantastic man who has decided to get his PhD at Yale. So we moved here for that, and he's a chemical engineer doing fun things over at Yale. So
Great.
What was the original question?
So I'm just thinking how you got into this kind of work. So you wanted to go into social
Yes.
work, and you came here for family reasons.
Yes.
And now we got you doing the aging program.
Correct.
Now, how would you like people to get involved with what you're doing? Do you looking for any public support? Is it mostly financial support? You mentioned there's a June 13th fundraiser for Jewish Family Service, the agency under which you do this program. Anything else that people should know or just know to contact you? How do they contact you if they need help?
Well, we have all the information on our JFS website right now, both about the event and about, the resources. So if they're interested in volunteering, if they're interested in coming to the event, we'll have a lot more information at the event and telling more stories there as well. In addition, there's opportunities always to volunteer, to be a friendly visitor, if that was something someone would be interested in. We're always looking for that.
That's great. Yeah, I remember JFS had the visitors for the people you deliver the food to. I remember
Right.
that when my kids were little.
So that's helpful and only going to become more and more helpful.
And if you are elderly or you have a parent who's elderly who needs kind of help, I guess it sounds like the best thing to do is to go to the Jewish Family Service website for New Haven. And I went on there and I saw that this program is right front and center, so you can't miss it.
Can't miss it.
Right on the front of our website, you'll see a link to our invitation, so you can register right online. If you can't come, you can make a donation online as well. That really helps. Every dollar helps support this program and really lets us grow.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining in and tell us about the important work you're doing.
Thank you.
Liz
Thanks for
Davenport,
having us.
Rachel Skolnick, Jewish Family Services, everybody, the Aging Adults Program. There's a fundraising event June 13th, and there's an everyday opportunity to help out at the Jewish Family Services website. Also want to thank the miracle man behind the controls, WNHH station manager Harry Dross, and thanks to Yale New Haven Hospital for providing support for today's program. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long here at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.